Hi, my name is Jeanette and welcome to the channel Jane Reads. So as I've mentioned before, I am doing Chantel's Read Your Bookshelf Challenge. And the prompt for June is to read a book with a book on the cover. So I thought, well, let's go through all the books that I've either read or that I own on my TBR to see what books have books on the cover. So most of my books are on my Kindle, so I've printed out notes about them. But the first one, I'm going to start with the books I read and then go down to the books I haven't read that I could read for this challenge. So the first book I'm going to mention is Blind Trust by Terry Blackstock. This one is suspense. I read this one in April, so I talked about it in my April wrap-up video, which I will link below. This one is one of Terry Blackstock's very early books, and while I liked that Clint was trying to do the right thing, even though it was hard, I did not like Sherry's attitude, and that ruined the enjoyment of the book. So I'm not going to mention much about it because I have talked about it previously. So then the next book is Jane by the Book by Pepper Basham. This is a contemporary romance novella. So I'll read you kind of what the description says. So 4 years ago, Jane Warwick escaped the shame and heartbreak of being jilted at the altar by becoming a housekeeper at a secluded inn at Simon Ridge. Predictable and quiet, the inn helps Jane find peace to heal and celebrates her strengths, where she is promoted to head housekeeper. But an unexpected visit to Bath, England upsets Jane's plans and sends her out of her comfort zone, directly into the path of historical detective author Titus Stewart. The only plans Titus sticks to are family holidays, and the ones that send him careening into his story worlds. But when an uptight and nervous innkeeper stumbles into his life, and his latest novel, nonfiction, begins to take on much more of an interesting gleam. As the unlikely pair delve into the mystery behind a 150-year-old letter, will they both uncover a romance that stands the test of time? So I read this one last year and I gave it 4 stars. I just absolutely loved the setting of Bath, England. I fell in love with the town of Bath when we had the opportunity to visit it a few years ago, and I felt like I was transported right back to the town through this book. I'm not usually a big fan of novellas, but this is a sweet romance story that really did keep me entertained. So then the next book is Head in the Clouds by Karen Whitmire. So on this book, you'll be able to see on this cover, there is a girl reading a book. So this one is a historical romance. So Adeline Proctor is a young woman with her head in the clouds, longing for a real-life storybook hero to claim her as his own. But when a husband-hunting debacle leaves her humiliated, she interviews as a governess position on a central Texas sheep ranch and vows to leave her romantic yearnings behind. When Gideon Westcott left his privileged life in England to make a name for himself in America's wool industry, he never expected to become a father overnight. And 5-year-old Isabella hasn't uttered a word since she lost her mother. The unconventionality of the new governess concerns Gideon and intrigues him at the same time. But he can't afford any distractions. He has a ranch to run, a shearing to oversee, and a suspicious fence cutting to investigate. When Isabel's uncle comes to claim the child and her inheritance, Gideon and Adelaide must work together to protect Isabel from the man's evil schemes, and soon neither can deny their growing attraction. But after so many heartbreaks, will Adelaide be willing to get her head out of the clouds and put her heart on the line? So after reading Karen Whitmire's book for the first time in 2017, I have been working on making my way through all her books. I read this one back in 2019, and so I don't remember a whole lot about it other than the fact that it was a sweet love story with suspense and danger mixed in. It's set on a ranch, and I absolutely love ranch settings. I remember falling in love with both of the main characters and wanting them to admit their feelings to one another. The cover makes me think made me think I would be able to connect with the main character easily because she's got her head in a book. I rated this one 4 stars, and I'm thinking I may need to add this one to my reread list to kind of refresh my memory because I did enjoy it. So the next book I'm going to talk about is The Secrets of Paper and Ink by Lindsay Harrell. So this is a contemporary romance, and I don't know if you'll be able to tell in the picture, but the big square pink is the book. Like, it's a book. So this says, a year after the death of her abusive fiance, domestic violence counselor Sophia Barrett finds returning to work is just too painful. So she escapes to Cornwall, England, and finds a place to stay, with the requirement that she help out in the bookstore underneath the room she's renting. Given her love of all things literary, it seems the perfect place for her to find peace. Ginny Rose is an American living in Cornwall, sure that if she saves the bookstore she co-owns with her husband, then she can save her marriage as well. Fighting to keep the place she feels like she belongs, she brainstorms with her brother-in-law William and Sophia to try to help keep the charming bookstore afloat. 200 years before, governess Emily Fairfax knew 2 things for certain. She wanted to be a published author, and she was in love with her childhood best friend. But he was a wealthy heir and well out of her league. Sophia discovers Emily's journals, and she and William embark on a mission to find out more about the mysterious and determined woman, all the while getting closer to each other as they get closer to the truth. So this book just sucked me right in. I loved this book. I quickly found myself caring about Sophia. She's struggling with the mixed feelings after the death of her abusive fiance, and so she longs for the change in her life and ends up in Cornwall, England. When she arrives in Cornwall, we meet Ginny, William, and Emily. The more characters I met, the more I became invested in the story. In England, Sophia discovers this old journal from Emily, and it just captures her attention. With the help of William, she is able to not only discover who the writer was, but quite a bit about her life at that time. Along the way, Sophia and William grow close. Can Sophia open herself up to the possibility of a new relationship after the hurts from her past? While each character captured my heart in a different way, it was Ginny's circumstance that broke my heart. I was very pleased with the support she received from the other characters. The story does include some very difficult situations, such as an abusive relationship, a husband's abandonment, and a seemingly impossible dream, but overall the story was not depressing. Rather, I found it encouraging. The message that I took away from it is that God is always there to help you navigate the hard times and rise above them. So I highly recommend this book. The last book that I have read is, and I've talked about this just recently on my channel, is The Fifth Avenue Story Society by Rachel Hawk. So in the cover on this one, we get kind of a window into a library with books. This is a contemporary romance. So it says that 5 strangers get a chance to rewrite their own stories. Executive assistant Lexa is eager for a much-deserved promotion, but her boss is determined to keep her underemployed. Literature professor Jet is dealing with a broken heart, as well as nagging suspicion his literary idol Gordon Phillips Roth might be a fraud. Uber driver Chuck just wants a second chance with his kids. Aging widower Ed is eager to write the true story of his incredible marriage. And Coral, the queen of the cosmetics industry, has broken her engagement and is on the verge of losing her great-grandmother's multi-million-dollar empire. When all 5 New Yorkers receive an anonymous, mysterious invitation to the Fifth Avenue Story Society, they suspect they're victims of a practical joke. No one knows who sends the invitations or why. No one has heard of this society, and no one is prepared to reveal their deepest secrets to a roomful of strangers. Yet curiosity and loneliness bring them back week after week to the old library, and it's there they discover the stories of their hearts and the kind of friendship and love of their souls. So, as I mentioned, I have talked about this one a few times on my channel. I read it last summer and I just loved it, and I keep thinking about it, how much I enjoyed it. I mean, I had to include it in this, even though I've talked about it, because the library is a large portion of the setting. The story begins by introducing the readers to 5 separate characters. Each character has their own storyline, and they're not connected until each get in the mysterious invite. I loved that the story was told through each character's point of view. This allowed me to get to know each of them individually. The mystery of who sends the invite and why these 5 people kept me intrigued. I enjoyed getting to know the characters and watching them learn to embrace this friendship opportunity. The healing that these individuals went through as they learned to open up to one another, be vulnerable, and grow was inspiring. I highly recommend this book. Now, the last 2 books I'm going to talk about are books that I have not read. The first one is Breach of Trust by Diane Mills. This one is on my Kindle, so again. This is a mystery suspense, and it is book 1 of the series Call of Duty. So Paige Roberts is a former CIA agent who lost all she treasured 7 years ago when her entire team was killed in a covert mission. She blames their leader, Daniel, whom Paige believes betrayed them. Disillusioned and afraid for her life, she disappeared and started a new life as a small-town librarian. But when Daniel announces his candidacy for governor of her state, he comes after Paige to ensure that she won't ruin his bid for office. He threatens everything she holds dear, and Paige must choose between the life of hiding that has become her refuge, or risking everything in one last desperate attempt to right old wrongs. So I bought this book way back in 2014 and I haven't read it yet. A former CIA agent turned librarian. Paige is being threatened by Daniel and has some choices to make. I am intrigued by this summary. Why have I not read this book yet? So that's option number 1. Then option number 2 is The White City by Grace Hitchcock. So I completely planned on trying to get this in my June TBR, but when I filmed my TBR video, I completely forgot about this book. And when historical fiction came up, I could have chosen this one. And nope, I chose a different book instead. So I do still plan on reading this in June, and it maybe the other one too, maybe. So we'll see. So this is a historical romance. It's set around the Chicago's World Fair in 1893. And Winifred believes that she witnesses a woman being kidnapped, so she goes to try to figure out, is that what she saw? That's about all I really know about this book. So those are all the books that I own that have a book on the cover that would fit this June prompt. If you are doing the Read Your Bookshelf Challenge, or if you would be choosing a book for this prompt with a book on the cover, which book would you choose, or what do you plan on reading? Please let me know. I'd love to chat in the comments below, and have a good day. Thank you.